Hello, welcome to Incoming, the video podcast that takes a look back at the week's historical miniature releases. This is episode 40, which is looking back at the miniature releases for week ending the 26th of March 2010. As always, I'm your host, Neil Shook. Well, it's actually been a really quiet week on the historical miniatures front, so I couldn't even manage a top 10 releases for you this week. So starting things off at number 7, we have a new release from a company called Curtis Miniatures. Now, these are actually part of the First Core brand in the UK, and here you see one of the only pictures available of their new releases for this week. This is their Samurai Retainer Command. Now, they've released several Samurai packs. Unfortunately, this is the only picture they currently have available on the web. I must admit, I don't think this is the greatest set of Samurai figures I've ever seen. I mean, they're nice enough, but you've got a couple of glaring errors. Like, for example, the fact you've got a samurai holding a sword, and yet you can quite clearly see that there is a sword pommel in the sheath. And I must admit, I don't particularly recognise the headgear either, although I suppose that's not unusual. So, nice enough, clean-looking minis, but certainly by far not the best samurai I've seen around. Number 6 this week, we have the latest release in Magister Militum's 10mm Napoleonic range. These are the Highlanders. Quite simply, more of the same from Magister. They're certainly not bad figures, but I think they just seem to suffer from heroic 6mm issue that I've mentioned previously. So a nice enough release, but I'm not overly convinced. Well, we're staying with Napoleonics as we go to number 5, and here we see a brand new range from Renegade. Now, Renegade in the past have been primarily known for their World War I and their English Civil War range, but they're now releasing a range of Napoleonics. And they've started with Napoleonic British. So here we see a range of Napoleonic Brits in Belgic Shako. You've got a command pack, and then essentially you've got packs of all the same figures, so you can regiment your units. Now, these fit in with Renegade's current offers on their miniature packs, which means that their figures work out at something around about, I think it's about 45 pence each, which is an absolute bargain. Now, I've been a huge fan of Renegade's World War I range. These, I'm not quite so sure. They seem nice enough, and yet here we have yet another range of 28mm Napoleonics. And oh look, they're Brits for 1815. I mean, you can certainly see they're hoping to capitalise on the interest raised by the likes of Victrix and the Perrys. And whilst they probably are some of the cheapest metal miniatures out there, as far as Napoleonic 28mm is concerned, I'm not convinced that they are in any way the best available. Not a bad release, but not amazingly inspiring either. Okay, into the top 5, and we stick once again with Napoleonics. Changing scale just slightly into 156 scale, which is essentially the same as 28mm except they're slimmer. These are the latest offering from Alban Miniatures, and these are their Austrians, or Germans, firing. A couple of different firing poses available. So you've got some firing figures, and you've also got some line figures as well. Alban continue to release a very solid set of miniatures, but they are very different from everything else that's currently on the market. I suppose the only thing that would be moderately compatible would be Het's 28mm plastics. They would be of similar scale and build. So very nice figures from Alban, but I think they're getting quite a bit of stick, simply because they don't really fit in with a lot of people's collections. Number 4, the first of a couple of sets of new releases this week from Warlord Games. First off, we have for their Ancient Roman army a brand new Roman Centurion. So here we see an officer figure in a fairly unusual pose. He's obviously thrusting with a sword, but he's actually looking where he's thrusting. He's actually looking to the side and under his shield. I just find that a very bizarre pose. I would have expected his head to be turned the other way, so he's actually looking where he's thrusting behind his shield, as opposed to looking to the side. So, whilst I like the overall look of the figure, the actual details of the pose, once you start getting into it, are somewhat strange. So, it's not without its issues, to say the least. But for that, it's quite a nice miniature. And we'll stay with Warlord as we go to number 3. Just moving ranges. These are now going to their pike and shot range, and these are Highlanders. Some new greens to join their Scottish Covenanters army. Some interesting figures these, as they could very easily be used for Scottish clansmen anywhere around this particular period. So definitely a range of figures that will probably have a lot more uses than simply English Civil War. I think these are well worth keeping an eye on. Very nice stuff from Warlord. So on to my number 2, and it's a couple of new releases from Empress Miniatures. Now, as well as being well known for their Zulus, one of the major ranges that Empress are doing is the Spanish Civil War. And these are a couple of weapons teams for their Italians. So here we have a team with a Beretta, first of all lying prone firing it, and secondly we have the same team up and moving. More excellent sculpts from the Empress team. You know, we've really come to expect some excellent stuff from them in their releases. The face on the standing loader probably could be better, but I think on the whole, a couple of really nice minis. Unusual subject. I know the Spanish Civil War is a subject that's probably getting a lot more publicity these days than previously, so nice addition. Which leads me to my number 1, and I have to put my hand up and say this is probably a little bit of favouritism simply because I really like Bacchus, but they've just released their Spanish. Now, they've been going away and resculpting a whole load of their ancients this year. I featured some of their resculpted Scutari on last week's show, and here we see the rest of the miniatures. We have some spearmen, we have some Scutari and some slingers. Now these are in addition to the Scutari and the light cavalry we've previously seen. Excellent new sculpts from Bacchus, so much better than what's come before. You're looking at these sculpts, you really can see a huge improvement in the quality of the miniatures. And yes, you know, I'll be the first to admit that I'm a real sucker for Bacchus. I just love these figures. I think they produce some excellent ranges, and I'm really pleased to see that Pete's moving on well with his resculpts of his Ancients range. This really bodes well for, especially when he starts resculpting his Romans and stuff like that. So I think we're going to be going to see something rather special from Bacchus in the near future. But an excellent release from Pete Berry and the crew. And that's it. As I say, a very shortened show this week. It really has been very quiet on the historical miniatures releases front. So, you know, not a tremendous amount to choose from when it comes to picking my favourites, because it's basically pretty much all there. Pretty mixed bag. I'm sure you'll agree there are some very nice minis amongst what's come available this week. Definitely a week to be choosy on what you may want to get involved with as far as new releases. Well, thank you for watching the show. Before I go, just want to say big thank you to Bill at the Miniatures page and Zach at Tabletop Gaming News. Without these guys' hard work on their websites, this show simply wouldn't be possible. Thanks very much for watching again. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'll see you soon. Bye.